the SBA, just to answer any questions that you may have. I'm with the Music Entertainment Division with the Economic Development Department. We have several folks from our staff as part of this call, and decided that we really needed this workshop because there have been revisions, and we don't want to leave any money on the table. We want to be sure that all of our businesses in Austin, especially our venues, our creative spaces, have access to the capital that they need to survive. So I'd like to introduce you to, and I'm going to go over to my cheat sheet, to David Elizondo. He is the Deputy District Director of the San Antonio District Office of the U.S. Small Business Administration. So they have a presentation prepared for you. We will do a Q&A at the end. Please put your questions in the chat. And if we don't get to your questions on air, we will get to those questions afterward. The meeting is being recorded, so please share with your friends and your family afterward. So anyway, take it away, David.
Thank you, Erica. First off, can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, just want to make sure. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Elizondo, the Deputy District Director for the Small Business Administration San Antonio office. Our office here in San Antonio covers 55 counties in Central Texas. So we do have a wide area of coverage, which does include Austin as well. And one of our SBA representatives is actually located in Austin. His name is Mr. Eric Spencer. He primarily focuses on the role of business opportunity specialist, which helps firms obtain federal government contracts. But he also acts as the economic development specialist role, which works with chambers of commerce, EDCs, local entities, nonprofits in the Austin market to expand the mission of SBA's products and services. So slide 2 right here talks about my contact information. So if you all have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. That's my government cell phone there. So if I don't know the answer, I can assure you I'll get a subject matter expert to get you the correct answer for anything that you have. So Eric will be helping me as well on the chat as well. So if you have questions along the way, Eric will help out with fielding some of those questions. So with that being said, let's turn over to the next slide, Stephanie. Okay, so today we really want to focus on SBA's disaster assistance, and there's 2 main programs that we're going to discuss today, which is the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Then I'll follow with some resources available to small business owners that are both for-profits and nonprofit. And we've been dealing with COVID-19 since March, and so there's been a lot of frequently asked questions that we come across that we wanted to share with you all as well. Next slide. So the first program is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is a program directly by the U.S. Small Business Administration. So historically speaking, when you apply for an SBA loan, usually you're working with an SBA participating lender or a micro lender to obtain a loan for your for-profit small business. Now, right off the bat, I could tell you that the Economic Injury Disaster Loan is also available to certain nonprofits. So that's something new that, or an area that SBA normally does not give out loans to our nonprofits. So in this case, because of COVID-19, the EIDL is another option for nonprofits as well. Next slide. Okay, so speaking of the EIDL, right? So it's available for all small businesses as long as you meet the definition of a small business. So if you want to make sure that you meet the definition of a small business, on SBA's website, you can just type in SBA Small Business Size Standards on, for example, Google, and you type in your NAICS code, your North American Industry Classification Systems code, usually a 6-digit code, to see if you meet the definition of being a small business, you know, depending on the number of employees, the number of revenue that you have. The funds right now, as of July 11th, the SBA has stopped with the EIDL Advance, and that was essentially the grants that was originally available for small businesses. You have to make sure to check the box and there was a hard stop as of July 11th. So that means that SBA is still processing the loan side of the EIDL, but as far as the grant money, which was $1,000 per employee, that has been exhausted. So, if you did submit an application for an EIDL loan, do know that if you already submitted it, you're still waiting to hear back that it's still pending. We're still processing thousands of loans per day within the Office of Disaster Assistance. So to further elaborate, Eric and I fall under the Office of Field Operations, and within the U.S. Small Business Administration, we actually have an office called Disaster Assistance, which that's their sole mission, to focus on disaster assistance across the nation. So for example, during Hurricane Harvey, back in 2017, ODA sent public information officers to the field to promote the EIDL program. But of course, with COVID-19, there is no one location for this disaster. Of course, we all know it's nationwide. Speaking frequently, it's across the world, right? So, we work really close with the Office of Disaster Assistance to make sure that applications that have been submitted, we can check on the status of that. So you can reach out to myself or Eric. If you call the 100 number, for whatever reason you're not getting through, you can always reach out to Eric or myself to determine on the status of your application. So loans will continue to be processed first come, first served basis. So depending on the information that was submitted on the loans, sometimes folks were getting a quick turnaround time while others are still pending. It depends on a multitude of factors, such as your credit score, the information that was submitted on the application. I know loan officers are being assigned to your application, so they may follow up with questions as well. Next slide. Okay, so small businesses were of course able to apply originally for COVID-19 for EIDL specifically. And at one point of time, there was a pause for all small businesses to apply for EIDL, and it was only open to agriculture businesses. And that was in response to folks in headquarters, folks in congressional offices saying, hey, we're leaving this one particular industry behind. So for a short period of time, only agriculture's businesses were able to apply, but now it has been opened up again to all businesses. So you, the small business owner on this call today, should be able to go onto SBA's website to apply for an economic injury disaster loan. Here it says no cost to apply or no obligation to take the loan if offered. So what this entails is there's no fees involved. So if you apply for an economic injury disaster loan, also known as EIDL, the loan officer is going to reach out to you. They're going to say, this was the amount you were approved for, sir or ma'am. This is the number of years that we can approve for repayments. Now, you as a small business owner say, you know what, I want this reconsidered, or you know what, at this point, I don't need the economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL. So, there's no fees involved. And so, I will say that they are going to do a hard credit pull to see what you're eligible for. But again, as opposed to traditional bankings where, there's sometimes fee involved to apply for a mortgage, for a loan, etc. Not intended to replace lost sales profits or for expansion. So let me elaborate on this one here. So say if you had net profits of $20,000 per month, hypothetically speaking, that is, and your net profit was reduced from 20,000 to 10,000. Well, you're still in the positives here. So for that right there, and loan officers say, hey, you know what, Mr. John Smith, Miss John Doe or Jan Doe, unfortunately, you're not eligible for EIDL because you're still making profits off of this. And so that's what we mean by not intended to replace lost sales profits. So now in the same scenario, if you went from $20,000 a month of net profits to negative, $5,000 a month in sales profits. Okay, so yeah, that's something to, consider, and that's where more than likely the EIDL application will proceed, because you're showing your financial statements of how you're losing money. So just wanted to make that clear. Next slide. Okay, so one of the benefits of the EIDL, and we always encouraged small businesses, especially during Hurricane Harvey, was to take advantage of the EIDL, even if you may not necessarily need it. Now we're like, you know what, I'm doing okay. I'm taking it one day at a time. I don't want to be in debt to the federal government. And what happened 3 or 4 months later is now they're starting to show a pattern of negative sales per month. And so here we're telling folks with the EIDL, you know, there's no payments for the first 12 months. So today we are on July 23rd. Say on August 1st, you have been approved for an EIDL loan. Well, your first payments not have to be made until August 1st of next year. So, you know, that's something we highly encourage folks to, you know, possibly consider, is not how you're doing today, but what are some things that's coming down the pipeline 6 months from now that may adversely impact your sales. And so are you a seasonal type of business where, you know, during the summer, you're doing okay, but come winter time, your sales tend to dip a little? You know, well, this is something to consider. It's just the EIDL. And so again, a 1-year deferment. Now, that's not to say that there's a penalty if you start making payments sooner. So let's say you do get approved for an EIDL loan of, again, for simplicity purposes, $100,000. Well, you can start making your payment, you know, 2 months from now if, you know, you're making some net profits and you want to get ahead of paying back your EIDL loan. So the interest rates are fixed, regardless if you have an 800 credit score or a 600 credit score. For for-profit businesses, it's 3.75, and for certain nonprofits, 2.75. And I say certain nonprofits, I would highly encourage folks to visit sba.gov/coronavirus. And I'll have Eric here put that on the chat box for you all. Again, that's sba.gov/coronavirus. Getting a little bit of feedback here.
Yeah, if you're just joining the chat, if you could please mute your microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you know, what can the EIDL be used for? And so it says there may be used for fixed debts. You can use it for your payroll, but we're going to further elaborate on assistance for your payroll with the PPP, your accounts payable, and other bills affected by the disaster. So, jumping back up one link, so the long-term repayments for COVID crisis up to 30 years. So again, it's not automatically going to be 30 years. It's just based on a multitude of factors, such as your credit score, such as your ability to repay. So that is something that will be negotiated between you, the borrower, and the loan officer. So we've seen people have it paid back in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. Again, the caveat there is up to 30 years. Okay, next slide. Now, the question came up quite often about guarantees, if I have to guarantee this loans. And as of right now, it's stating that, you know, if you have a loan that's under $200,000, there's no guarantee that's required. However, if the loan is over, which I'll say up front right now, the max right now for the EIDL is $150,000. So if you apply for 200 and you're coming back with 150, it's nothing that you did wrong on the application. It's just the max right now that SBA is processing is 150,000. Now, originally it was up to $2 million, but with the influx of applications, that amount was indeed transcribed to up to $150,000. So I presume this is obsolete in the personal guarantee. As far as collateral, so if you have a loan that's over $25,000, SBA will require for you to pledge collateral. Collateral can be anything aside from your primary residence in the state of Texas. There's something called a homestead, where, you know, obviously we don't want you to put your house up and you're left without a house should the loan not be able to be repaid. So collateral can be anything such as vehicles, it could be savings accounts, it could be retirements, and those are the types of things. But again, to recap, I know in other states that may not be the case, but in the state of Texas, you cannot pledge your house as collateral. Credit elsewhere available was something that was reflected for idle loans during Hurricane Harvey, and actually for any other disasters where if you have credit available elsewhere. So what that means is if you can apply for a loan through your local bank, granted the interest rate may be a little higher, then there was a possibility of being declined for an idle loan. But in this case here, due to the CARES Act, which stands for the coronavirus, where is it at? Here it is. So the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Securities Act, which was passed the end of March, they're currently waiving that, where even if you did have credit available elsewhere, you can still apply for the idle loan. Next slide. Okay, so there's been multiple applications that have been released since we've started with the idle application process. So in Texas, I know it was sometime towards the end of March, beginning of April, when folks could start applying for the economic injury disaster loan. And there was one website that was released, and folks that did apply, I believe SBA should have reached out and say, and we need you to reapply on the latest link, which is this one here, the COVID-19 relief.sba.gov. So that is the accurate website. And we do caution folks to watch what the ending is. So we want to make sure that you're not applying for COVID-19 relief.sba.com. There are, again, as a caveat, there are websites out there that are mimicking SBA disaster assistance. And we want to pretty much be honest with you all right now and say that, you know, there have been scenarios where small businesses say, I applied for help, but they say, okay, send us the web link, and it's a .com. So, okay, you know, we really caution you to make sure that when you apply for disaster assistance, you know, first off, SBA is not showing any preferential treatment to any particular small business for you to submit your application. And the application is self-applicable, meaning you can do this yourself, right? So you want to make sure that it's a sba.gov at the end when you apply for idle assistance. Next slide. So hopefully you all can see this, and we try to really streamline the process to, you know, make sure that it's straightforward and there's no fill in the blank. You know, we're, as an SBA, we're having folks use the radio buttons to check which boxes that are applicable to you all as small business owners and nonprofits. So based on the information that you're putting on here, this is what SBA is reading. And again, we're processing thousands of these applications a day. You know, this isn't just a Texas thing. It's not just Austin. You know, it's across the board, across the nation, that folks are applying for SBA disaster assistance. So we really encourage folks, again, to apply for this idle, mainly because, number one, there's no fee, but number two, the application deadline for this is not until December 21st. And the Triple P, which we'll talk about here in a little while, the application was originally at the end of June, but was extended to August 8th. So again, simple questions as, you know, is the business not more than 500 people? And if you check the box here and saying, yes, I have more than 500 employees, then you're probably going to get kicked out and say, you know, at this point, you're not applicable. Here, if you're a nonprofit, you know, it's asking you, which one do you fall under? Are you 501c, you know, C5 or C13, C19? You know, this is where also you want to specify, if you're a nonprofit, which category you fall under. Next slide. So another common issue that folks have had that we're starting to see on our end is you're not putting in the correct type of organization. There's an incorrect social security number. Make sure this information is accurately filled out, because, you know, this is how we're doing the credit pulls. This is how we want to make sure that you are a qualified small business to receive disaster assistance. The other part too is the gross revenues. And some folks were putting the same information for gross revenues and cost of goods sold, so therefore they were ineligible to apply for disaster assistance, or they got a decline letter. And so because they were declined, now they have to go through the whole process of a reconsideration, and that's another time frame behind the initial application process. So to talk about time frames, I can say confidently that because of less applications are coming through, the turnaround time for EIDL is a shorter window compared to a month ago or 2 months ago, where even more EIDL applications were coming through. So if you submit your application today, the chances of you receiving some sort of corresponding email from a loan officer is dramatically reduced compared to a month or two ago. So again, making sure that you fill out the right information based on your financial statements here. And if you're not sure if you know what you're looking at, as far as how do I read my financials, towards the end of this presentation, I'm going to talk about resources available in the Austin community and surrounding communities that provide technical assistance at no charge to you all as small business owners. Okay, next slide. So this last part is just a continuation of the application process. I will say it has been streamlined. The amount of information that's requested has been reduced. What we're trying to do is get folks in and out as quickly, or not in and out per se, but a shorter time frame to give you a response, whether or not you are indeed eligible for an EIDL. If so, what was the amount you were approved for? And if for whatever reason you were denied or there's missing information, that's where the loan officer is going to send you a follow-up email. So if you did apply already for an EIDL and you're on this call today to check on the status of that, be sure you're checking your spam folder. Make sure you're checking your junk folder as well, to see if you did indeed receive a response from the Office of Disaster Assistance. And again, if for whatever reason it's been a month or two and you have not received anything, reach out to us. We want to make sure that you're being put on top of the list as a priority, especially if you applied 2 months ago, when certain folks are getting a response within 2 weeks. So reach out to myself again, reach out to Eric, and we'll be sure to follow up with you, the small business owner, the nonprofit, to make sure that you know where your EIDL application stands. Okay, next slide. So what can you expect? So you submit the application, your information is received on our end. The SBA has hired additional folks to help with the influx of applications. For Office of Disaster Assistance, I can tell you right now, your information is being processed at the California location for the Office of Disaster Assistance. This is something that you're not coming into a physical location to sign off on your documents. Everything's going to be done electronically. So don't feel obligated by no means to drive from Austin to San Antonio to speak with the representative, because I can tell you right now, because of the COVID-19 cases, we do have a skeleton crew, and we're not taking visitors right now. So especially for the EIDL, again, a loan officer is going to contact you, and they're going to send you information on how you sign and submit the documents. So here, a case, not Manger, excuse that typo there, a case manager assigned will be reaching out to you to let you know, sir, ma'am, this is the status of your application. It's pending, it's been processed, the loans have been dispersed, etc. So again, to kind of recap on the EIDL side, deferred for 1 year from notes of the dates. So because you applied on today, July 23rd, that's not when your 1 year mark starts. It's when the loan has been approved. So today being July 23rd, you get approved for your loan on August 1st. That is when your 1 year time frame starts. Again, the amortization will be negotiated between you and the case manager, your loan officer. So there is no balloon payment at the end. I know there's been some questions regarding, okay, after 5 years of making notes, is there a balloon payment at the end? No, the answer is there is no balloon payment at the very end. So if your payments have been $300 for the past 5 years, when you pay your last payment, it's going to be $300 as well. And there is no penalty also to make more towards the principal. So if you're paying 300 plus an additional 150 towards the principal, that's more power to you. That if you have that opportunity to make payments towards the principal, you can do that as well. We are processing payments by mail. Of course, I would highly encourage folks to pay it online because of the expedited turnaround time to make sure that their payment was approved and it was processed. So again, all this can be conveyed. If you go to the next slide. Thank you, ma'am. So that's our number right there for SBA disaster assistance, the 1-800-659-2955. Email disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Now, depending on what time you call the day, and Eric, if you can help me with this, I know the times were changed. We were originally at a certain time, and then it was 24 hours open, and then it was reversed to, I think, 7 to 7 Pacific time, I believe. So again, them being on the West Coast, you want to obviously capture them either right in the morning or perhaps later in the evening, but probably in the middle of the day when it's peaking, when people are trying to check on their status of their idle applications. The wait time can be significantly high. I know I've had some folks say it's been as much as an hour wait time, but I've also heard people that have called us a 1-800 number first thing in the morning and they have gone through within 5 minutes. So just keep that in mind as you're trying to check on the status of your idle application. Next slide. So thanks to my team, Eric, and we also have a public affairs specialist by the name of Nina Ramon. They put some numbers together as of July 14th, just to show you all the number of idle applications that have been approved. So 2.6 million nationwide. And to give you a perspective of the amount that's been approved of $150 billion just for this idle. Whenever Hurricane Harvey hit, the amount of loans that were approved was at barely $5 billion. So just to give you an idea of the wide area of COVID-19. So in Texas, $5 billion for Hurricane Harvey and idle. As of right now, as of July 14th, for just in Texas, 225,000 applications being approved at $12.8 billion. That's a big number. So, that doesn't mean that the funds are exhausting anytime soon. Of course, we try to remain transparent as of when the funds will be exhausted. I can't say again to reiterate the advanced portion has been exhausted, but as of right now, we're still taking application for the idle loans. Next slide. Okay, so as part of the CARES Act towards the end of March, part of the CARES Act was the Paycheck Protection Program, as what many people refer to as PPP. So the idle, to recap, is administered through the U.S. Small Business Administration, while the PPP is administered through SBA approved lenders. So we're talking about lenders that were already processing SBA loans, such as the 7A, 504, Community Advantage, et cetera. But here in the San Antonio district, we've also had a big influx of new lenders that have come on board to administer the PPP loan. And after this presentation, what Eric and I will do is send Erica, Stephanie, the folks that are collaborating with us on this call, to send you all a list of active PPP lenders, and especially those that are in the Austin market. There's been a lot of lessons learned since the PPP was first released. There's been 2 rounds of funding already of the PPP. So the original round of PPP funding was at $350 billion, and that was exhausted in less than 2 weeks. And so Congress got back together along with the SBA administrator, along with the Secretary of Treasury, saying, we need more funds for small businesses, and we're going to make sure that it goes to the small businesses that need it. So I'm sure a lot of you all were aware or saw on the news a bunch of franchises that applied for PPP funding. and the president also making remarks saying, you know, some of these franchises will be responsible to pay back those triple Ps because that was not the intended market. You know, the intended market for the triple P are the small businesses, the nonprofits that were adversely impacted by COVID-19. Next slide. So the purpose of the triple P, the Paycheck Protection Program, is primarily focused around the payroll of the employees for the small businesses. Originally, the deadline was the end of June. Right now, we're on the second round of funding, and I can't give you an accurate number right now because the numbers obviously fluctuate daily, or reduce daily. 2 weeks ago, there was still about $130 billion left of the second round of funding. So if I had to estimate, there's probably a little less than $100 billion that small businesses and nonprofits can apply for. So the deadline has been extended, and this is a thank you to the city of Austin to sponsor or put together this webinar to talk about the deadline that has been extended until August 8th. Now, what happens from there, August 8th, if there's still funding available, you know, that's where Congress, the House Oversight Committees, the Secretary of Treasury, SBA Administrator, you know, will reconvene and say, okay, if there's funds still available, do we go for another extension? Do we open it up to small businesses that have already received triple P? You know, if you look at what congressmen and congresswomen have proposed, there's a lot of proposals out there in regards to the triple P funding as part of the CARES Act on what to do with it. So the benefit of the triple P is there's a strong possibility that 100% of the loan can be forgiven, and you know, making sure that it's used primarily for payroll expenses. That's how the loan's going to be forgiven. But you can use the triple P for other things such as rent and lease expenses, utility expenses, mortgage, and other interest expenses as well. Next slide. Okay, so this is standard across the board. So regardless, again, of someone's credit score, regardless of if you're for-profit, nonprofit, regardless of the size of your small business, the interest rate will be the same for everyone, which is 1%. The maturity of 2 years. Like the EIDL, there's been a deferment for the first payment, but the EIDL is 12 months. The triple P is 6 months. It's 100% guaranteed by the U.S. Small Business Administration. What that means is, should you default on your loan, you know, that's where the SBA is going to step up and work with you as a borrower. The 7A, you know, has an 85% and a 75% guarantees depending on the loan amount. So the triple P has a 100% guarantee. Same as the EIDL as well. There is no prepayment penalty. There's no collateral, no personal guarantees required as well. The forms that are needed. And so this is where we encourage small businesses to work closely with the triple P participating lenders to figure out whether or not you're eligible to apply for triple P. So we've had people in Austin, for example, that went to one bank. I'm not going to get into specifics, but one bank that was processing hundreds of triple P loans, and they went to a credit union that didn't have so many applications pending, and you know, were able to get a faster response on the triple P as well. So to kind of recap on this again, I'm going to get with Eric, and what we're going to do is get you all the list of active triple P lenders as of today. I will say that the list of triple P lenders is not as extensive as it was when this program first kicked off. It could be a variety of reasons. The fact that they're still processing triple P loans, you know, especially with the bigger banks, they receive not only hundreds but thousands of triple P loans from small businesses. So our goal here is to make sure that we have that list in your hands. So some of the items as a follow-up to this presentation will be working with Erica and the crew at the City of Austin to make sure they all have the updated list. Next slide. So for the EIDL, if you recall, the max that was originally designated for an EIDL loan was $2 million. Then it was reduced to $150,000. Here for the triple P, it's still at the $10 million. And again, if you can, and we'll go into details exactly how the loan will be forgiven, but one of the caveats is, this is to benefit employees that make less than $100,000 per year. So there's a lot to that as well regarding bonuses, etc. What I would highly encourage for those folks, to want to learn more about the bonuses is on SBA's website. I know Eric put this on the chat earlier, is visit our website. We update the information on there almost on a daily basis on what the PPP funds can be used for and what they cannot be used for. So there is in there talks about bonuses and employees over 100,000 of goes, no-go scenarios. And here I know we have an example here, but we do have a list of what we call frequently asked questions on SBA's website. And I know that document almost on a daily basis has been updated. Probably not so much lately, but especially when PPP first kicked off, that list was being updated. Last I checked, it was at question number 40, but I'm more than confident it's way beyond question 40 now. So to kind of guide you all with the PPP about should I apply, should I not apply, we created some Q&As for you all to review. So if you go to the next slide. So some of the common questions that we have received here at the San Antonio District Office is, I'm an LLC owner, which set of instructions apply to me? And you obviously want to make sure when you're filing for your PPP, when you're working with the SBA participating lender, that you're following the instructions that are applicable based on how you filed taxes on the previous year for your small business. So in other words, if you're an LLC, you definitely want to make sure that you're not filing under a sole proprietor or a corporation, as in C Corp, S Corp, but you obviously want to make sure that you're filing, you're submitting your application based on the instructions for LLC status. The other question here is, how do partnerships apply for PPP, and how is the maximum PPP calculated up to $10 million? And for each entity, you can only submit one PPP. But for sure, if you're hiring folks as a 1099, do know that you're not supposed to be counting those folks as full-time employees, because as a sole proprietor, as an independent contractor, you can apply for the PPP yourself. So we have heard stories about banks applying for a PPP and counting for those folks that are 1099 part-time employees as full-time employees, and do know that they may be audited, and when they become audited, this stuff will come to light, and that's where they're going to be working closely with the financial institutions and the Office of Capital Acts of SBA to determine the accurate amounts of full-time employees per entity. Next slide. So last month there was the Flexibility Act passed as it pertains to the CARES Act. And, this is based off the feedback from small businesses who have received PPP and, some of the challenges that initially they had. So for example, when the PPP was first released, one of the requirements in order for it to be forgiven was that 75% of the PPP funds had to be used for payroll purposes. Okay, so that means, for example, you got a loan for $100,000, $75,000 had to be used for payroll purposes in order for it to be forgiven. Additionally, the loan had to be for over a course of 8 weeks. And as part of the Flexibility Act here, some of that information has changed. So that has been reduced now from 75% down to 60%. So as long as 60% of the PPP loan is used for payroll purposes, that's one checkbox that you can possibly get to, one closer for it to be forgiven. Instead of 8 weeks, I believe that was extended as well to 24 weeks. So now you have 24 weeks to exhaust the PPP loans. I see a question here. So sole proprietors can apply for PPP. Yes, sole proprietors can apply for PPP. Safe harbors, and then something Eric and I were just discussing. Say you applied for PPP, you got it approved, but for whatever reason that you were ineligible to apply, or you did not really need triple P. So you're not going to be penalized for that as long as obviously you repay the triple P loan amount. So that's what we refer to as the safe harbor. Extends the deferral period. So, again, to reiterate, the deferral period is 6 months. And once you are approved for the triple P, do make note that you don't have to fill out the forgiveness application right away. You have up to 10 months after you exhaust your triple P funds to work with your financial institution, the SBA participating lender for the triple P program, to submit your forgiveness application. And I will say, folks, please be patient to the banks when it comes to the forgiveness application. Almost on a weekly basis, there's more and more guidance being released to the banks in regards to how to process a forgiveness application. It's called the IFRs, the interim final rules. There's updates to the interim final rules that are being submitted to the financial institutions. So please be patient when it comes to the forgiveness application. Okay, next slide. So the form that needs to be filled out when it comes to the forgiveness, as I just mentioned right now, is 3508 easy form. So SBA is not receiving these forms. This is where you work with the financial institution that you receive the triple P funds from to submit the forgiveness application. So I will say confidently, we've had people mailing in their forgiveness application to our district office. We've had folks faxing in their forgiveness application. And what we're doing on our end is referring them to the lenders. That's where the lenders are supposed to help you, the folks that approved your triple P funds, to submit the forgiveness application. So we're in contact with the SBA participating lenders, not the borrowers directly. So I just wanted to make note of that as well, that we're not taking in the forgiveness applications. Next slide. So to kind of recap, things to consider for the forgiveness of the triple P. So covered period, alternative payroll period. So when you work with your lenders, they're going to ask for historical data. They're going to ask you, let's see your tax returns. If you don't have your tax returns, your financial statements. Be sure to disclose cash compensation, your full-time employees calculation. So again, as a borrower, please be sure not to consider 1099s, part-time employees, especially 1099 sole contractors, sole proprietors, because they can too apply for triple P funding themselves. Keep in mind of the reduction of the safe harbor. So if you have received triple P already, read over the Flexibility Act as part of the CARES Act, and that'll talk about the safe harbor period as well. Next slide. So triple P by the numbers. To kind of paint a more clear picture of what's going on in the Austin market. So as part of being transparent with you all, the constituents, Secretary of Treasury, with the House Oversight Committee, with the SBA administrator, wanted to practice transparency with you all. And so there was a list released, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe a little less, of the number of small businesses and the names of the small businesses that have received triple P funding. On that list, small businesses that received triple P funding less than $150,000 were not disclosed, while small businesses that did receive triple P funding of $150,000 or more, that their names are on the list. And so that is public information. If you go to SBA's website, you can see those folks, if that includes you, your name should be on there as well. But it's not going to give you the exact number. It's going to give you the ranges of between 5 to 10 million, between 2 to 5, between 1 to 2. So in the Austin market, there's been a little over 3,000 loans that have been approved for triple P funding. Now, that being said, because they were approved these small businesses were approved for PPP funding doesn't necessarily mean that the loans were dispersed. So we want to make sure we clarify that. So because 3,500 were approved, does that represent that 3,500 small businesses and nonprofits received the funds? And they may not be inaccurate numbers. So again, this is just approved. Now for loans under 150,000, 19,000, a little over 19,000 small businesses were approved for PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. So, that's $685 million that have been injected in the Austin market. So we're encouraging folks, if you're in the music industry, entertainment, if you can provide information that you've been adversely impacted by COVID-19, start talking to the lenders, start talking to SBA, go to that website that I referred to earlier. And Eric, if you have it up on the chat box, great, that COVID-19 relief, SBA, we highly encourage folks, especially to apply for EIDL. If you don't think you need it now, but maybe down the road, you may need it. I know there's been a lot of venues, festivals that have been affected by COVID-19, Austin city limits, South by Southwest. I understand that small businesses were inadvertently impacted because of these festivals not taking place. This is the opportunity to possibly get these additional funds to recoup your revenues. If you can show the bankers that you're making a good, what we call in faith effort to keep your employees, you may be able to get the PPP fully forgiven. So what Eric and I are going to do as a follow-up to this, again, to recap, is we're going to send you all a list. We're going to work closely with our lender relations specialist to provide this list of banks that are still participating in the PPP program, but also for sure you want to visit sba.gov/coronavirus to see more information about the PPP and the EIDL. I believe one of the last slides I have here, if you go to the next one. So within SBA, we have something called SBA resource partners. These resource partners are nonprofit entities that have received federal grant money to provide technical assistance to you all at no charge. And we'll go into it on the next few slides, but I wanted to go over this real quick to show you all the difference between the PPP and the EIDL, right? And I definitely want you all, if you're on this, take a screenshot snippet from your computer. If not, click on the link that was provided of the overview of this presentation, so you all can see the difference of PPP and EIDL, and whether or not they need collateral, how much is forgiven, what's the max amount that this can be financed for, what are the term limits, who's able to apply. So thanks to one of our SBA resource partners, they put a side-by-side comparison here to show you all, the small business owners, the nonprofit leadership team, to show the difference between PPP and EIDL. So PPP is new. This has never been released before. This is the first time in history that the Secretary of Treasury, along with the SBA administrator, along with the House Oversight Committee, have created a program to implement this. While the EIDL's been around for every major disaster that's taken place for years on back, potentially, think of every major disaster such as Harvey, Katrina, the wildfires in the West Coast, tornadoes, etc. Small businesses were able to apply for EIDL. But for the PPP, that was non-existent up until 2020. So let's move over to those resources available. So go to the next slide. So as I mentioned briefly on the previous slide, 2 slides ago, about resources available. So SBA has 4 key SBA resource partners that you all can approach to receive technical assistance at no charge. I acknowledge there's, people out there that replicate the business model, but they have a fee attached to them. I've had small business owners, when I was with the Veterans Business Outreach Center, for example, that would pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a small business consultant, not realizing these resource partners here such as the Small Business Development Center, SCORE, Lift Fund, Veterans Business Outreach Center, or Women's Business Center as well. They provide these resources to you at no charge. So we're here for the life of the business. So regardless if you're just starting off, you're in the middle of trying to navigate through COVID-19, or unfortunately, if you need an exit strategy, you have these resource partners at your availability, to help you with your cash flow management. Do you know how to effectively market your small business? You want to learn more about importing or exporting. There's a bunch of resources available, folks, by the way, if you're interested in importing and exporting. Supply chain management. If you don't know how to read a profit and loss statement, a P&L statement, we have advisors there in Austin that can review your financials to show you from an outside perspective what you're doing right, what you're potentially, I'm not going to say you are doing wrong, but what you're potentially doing wrong as well. And, essentially we want to get you to that next level. We want to make sure that you can come out at the end of this COVID-19 tunnel, for lack of better words, and you're coming out stronger. So next slide. So here's your list. Here's your list of, and the contact information of our resource partners. And so again, the San Antonio district office does cover Austin. So we try to keep it here for you of our chapters, not only in Austin market, but also surrounding as well. So in Austin, we have something called SCORE. SCORE is unique. SCORE is a nonprofit consisting of a group of volunteers that are just wanting to help back. I see them as philanthropists who are just volunteering their time. They're not getting paid to help you all as small business owners. And when you reach out to SCORE, let them know, hey, I'm in the music industry. I'm in the entertainment industry. Can you pair me with a mentor that has experience in this industry? And there's their website right there, scoreaustin.org. I believe, and Eric can confirm this, that they may be in the process of moving locations physically, but nonetheless, their phone number, their website is there, so you can reach out to them. Unfortunately, we don't have a women's business center in Austin, but they are located in San Antonio, and they too can also provide technical assistance to my women-owned small business owners. Now, that's not to say they discriminate against men. They say, man, I'm sorry, we can't talk to you. Men, if you want to talk to the Women's Business Center, that's another tool in your list of potential items of assistance. If I have any Veterans Business Outreach Center, if I have any veteran-owned small business owners on this call, do know that there's a center directly for you all and your spouses as well. It's called the Veterans Business Outreach Center. They, unfortunately, again, are not in Austin, but they do cover the Austin market. So essentially, if you draw a line in the middle of Texas from El Paso to Houston, anything from El Paso to Austin to Houston, anything down, this office in Edinburgh, Texas covers veteran-owned small businesses, and anything north of that. If I have people on this call that are from Waco, from Fort Hood, that area, there is a Veterans Business Outreach Center in UT Arlington. So you want to Google UT Arlington Veterans Business Outreach Center, you'll get their contact information. Now, the biggest resource partner that we have, the largest one with the most locations, they have about 1,000 locations nationwide, is called the Small Business Development Center. We have one in Austin, we have one in San Antonio. The one in Austin is called the Texas State Small Business Development Center. Eric, if you can put their web link on the chat box so folks can see not only their website, but also their address as well. I will say, folks, that during COVID-19, I believe that you may not be able to meet with advisors in person, but I can assure you, I can promise you that they're still meeting with small business owners virtually. So you definitely want to reach out to these folks here. Again, you reach out to these people, it's at no cost to talk to them. And for my nonprofits on this call, unfortunately, SBDC does not work with nonprofits, but my folks at SCORE, they can assist with nonprofits as well. So SCORE is the only resource partner of the 4 that can help out with nonprofits as well. So my folks that are nonprofit agencies, I don't want you all to feel neglected by no means. We do have resources that are available for you all too, which is going to be the SCORE chapter. So for my for-profits, again, you can talk to all 4 entities: SCORE, Women's Business Center, SBDC, the Veterans Business Arts Center. But for my nonprofits, it's going to be SCORE that you're going to be talking to. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to cover a few more frequently asked questions, and I see that some of these frequently asked questions are being popped up here in the chat box, and so let's go over those real quick. So next slide. First question, can I apply for both EIDL and PPP? Simple answer is yes. We want to make sure though that you can distinguish that you're using the funds for different purposes. So if you want the PPP to be forgiven, you really want to focus on your payroll expenses. For the EIDL, you may want to tackle your other utility expenses, your supplies, marketing, etc. In order for the PPP to be forgiven. You want to be able to distinguish that, okay, this pot of money is used for these expenses, this pot of money is used for these set of expenses. I mean, that's a simple answer. A good practice that I would suggest, I'm not telling you all to do it for the record, is I've had small business owners come to me and say, I opened up 2 different checking accounts, one specifically for EIDL, one specifically for PPP, so I'm not mixing the funds together. Again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm not telling you all you should do that, but it's just a good practice that a small business owner came to me and said, hey, look, I really want to show to my CPA that I could distinguish the funds for EIDL and PPP. How do I check the status of my EIDL application? Well, you can call that 1-800 number that we talked about earlier. You can email them. You can also reach out to our office number. We have a program support assistant who's taking phone calls too. So if you're reaching out to the 100 number, I really don't want you all to wait for an hour. If you want another avenue or revenue to check on the status of your EIDL app, feel free to give us a call at 210-403-5900. Again, that's 210-403-5900. And that's our main office number for the San Antonio District Office. So Eric, if you can punch that into the chat box, greatly appreciate that too. Okay, next question, will the EIDL be forgiven like the PPP? Again, the simple answer there is no. When the EIDL first kicked off, there was the EIDL and the EIDL advanced portion. The EIDL advanced portion was the grant portion. Those funds, again, have been exhausted. There was a hard stop on July 11th for the EIDL advance. So folks, you can still apply for the EIDL, but it's not going to be forgiven. It's going to be a loan that will be deferred for 1 year before you have to make your first payment. And this was something I saw popped up in the chat box earlier, which is I'm an independent contractor, sole proprietor. What can I apply for? The answer is both. You can apply for both the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and the Paycheck Protection Program loan. For those that are LLCs, can I use 1099s as full-time employees? Again, we talked about it earlier that, truly those should not be considered as part of your full-time employees. Next slide. So for the folks that were, excuse me, that were originally approved for PPP before the Flexibility Act was released, again, that was, you have to exhaust the PPP at 75% within an 8-week period. Now with the Flexibility Act, can that be revised? And the answer is work with your lender. They should remain flexible too to revise that. Of course, there's got to be some amendments if they do approve it in place. Obviously, there's got to be some documentation. So the answer is there's not a no answer for sure. It's something that you work with your lender to revise from an 8-week covered period to 24 weeks. I submitted for an PPP loan. Can I submit for the EIDL? So yes, you can. The PPP, to really hit it home, is the deadline is August 8th, and the EIDL is December 21st. The EIDL, given that it is available to all 50 states, has different expiration dates. And so why is Texas December 21st? It was due to when the declaration was made from Texas. 9 months to that day is how long the application process is open. So if you do the math, and someone can help me out here, December 21st, subtract 9 months, that's what, March 21st is when the declaration was available for the state of Texas. I received an email from SBA. How do I know it's real? Again, really want to make sure that it's from a .gov website. Folks, even myself, I'm sure Eric as well, we've received folks that are trying to act as if they were SBA representatives, but in actuality, they were a private firm. I believe, and don't quote me on this, and I don't want you all to put your information in, I believe there's an SBA.com address that's out there. And so you really want to make sure you're going to an SBA.gov. I believe on SBA.com, they have a caveat saying we have no affiliation with the federal agency, but make sure you're checking on family members, families, and friends that are also applying for disaster assistance, and be sure to tell them that, hey, is it a .gov website? We want to make sure that you're punching in your personally identifying information, what we call in the federal agencies, PII, that you're giving it to a federal agency, not a .com. Last question here is, someone contacted me and promised me they can get me approved and move me to the head of the line for a fee. Is this real? So no, I mean, there's all kinds of ideas, tactics, however you want to call it, people trying to mislead you. And there's been, unfortunately, a lot of cases of fraud that's out there. As a matter of fact, I mean, I don't recall off the top of my head, but there was a person in Austin that would try to take advantage of the Triple P, and it's real when you have the Office of Investigative, the OIG, Inspector General, Office of Inspector General, and the FBI. They're looking after these folks. They're looking at the Triple P programs, make sure that folks are legally applying for Triple P, and that they're not just trying to essentially cheat the system. So we highly encourage folks, if you suspect fraud, waste, and abuse, to call the 1-800 number. The bit.ly link is there as well to file a report. And we're encouraging folks, and we're getting it almost on a daily basis of, hey, this person said I can apply for EIDL. He took my information. I never heard back. And now that person got the money and I did it. We've heard of real world scenarios that this has been happening. So for sure, you want to take advantage of our hotline to report any fraud, waste, and abuse. Last slide. So that's our information there, folks. So once COVID-19 kind of subsides and everything returns to normal, you can catch myself at the 615 East Houston Street, Suite 298. It's the federal building that's right across the street from the Alamo. That's our physical location of our district office. But again, Mr. Eric Spencer is our Austin representative, and he works closely with Austin entities and key stakeholders to promote SBA's programs and services. For more information specifically to our district, there's our link at the bottom, which is sba.gov/TX/San Antonio. So you all can obtain more specific information as it resides here in Central Texas. So we have our Twitter that's on there. We have our resource guide on there as well. There's a PDF file so you can see all the resources that are available. So folks, please take advantage of this, especially in the music and entertainment industry. Take advantage of the EIDL, take advantage of the Triple P. If you're not sure what you're applying for, reach out to Eric, reach out to myself. We want to make sure that you know what you're applying for before you submit your information. So with that being said, I know we're supposed to try to keep it around, the 35, 45-minute mark. We do have some time, or Erica, Stephanie, do we have time for a few Q&A?
Yes.
We do. Yeah. Go ahead, Erica. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that presentation. And then Stephanie, are we going to put the actual presentation in the chat for everybody so that they have that information that David just went over?
It's a PDF, unless Eric
Yes.
or David have another version. I can't stick a PDF into the chat.
Oh, I see. So no PDFs, but we'll be sure to, have this information available on our website. And so go to atxrecovers.com as our main point of contact about resources available for Austin-based businesses. So we have had several questions. I mean, we're not going to be able to get to all the questions today. But since we did kind of focus on, creatives, venues, you're going to have a lot of sole proprietorships, the self-employed, as well as venues trying to figure out exactly what's forgivable. I think a lot of the questions are revolving around, sometimes folks just don't understand the terminologies as self-employed of what is considered payroll. I mean, obviously the amount on their 1099s is that amount. So if we could just kind of go through for what's eligible for forgiveness, just to reconfirm that from the context of both organizations as well as the self-employed and sole proprietorships.
Okay, so you're referring to, I'm assuming, the triple P, right? To make sure that that's, that's the big one, right? A lot of people are chasing the triple P, and the main thing it evolves around is keeping staff on payroll. And we highly encourage folks, and we've heard a lot of these scenarios where I had to lay off someone and I got the triple P, I'm trying to bring them back, but they found a job elsewhere after receiving the triple P. That's part of the safe harbor aspect of the triple P, where you made in good faith an effort to try to get those employees back, at the same rate that you were paying them before you may have potentially had to lay them off as well. The question also was, I had savings, and this is a scenario. I had savings I had to deplete. Can I use my triple P to put that back in the savings? And the answer on that one is, it's really about going forward, right? So regardless if you had your savings depleted and obviously you have no more money in your savings, but you want to keep your employees, that's where the triple P would go into effect.
How about from a contractor's perspective, ones that pretty much do their taxes and they report everything either on their personal income tax as 1099 income? How should they document their expenses for eligibility?
So for sure, whenever their information is submitted for the triple P, one thing that's going to be requested is the tax returns. And so if an individual musician here, I'm looking at India's question, for example, they're going to ask for your personal income tax returns as well. And if you don't, obviously, if you have receipts, if you can show proof of expenses in the past year, that's going to help with determining the amounts approved for both EIDL and triple P. So again, as a sole proprietor, don't feel that you're excluded from triple P. That's something you can also peruse as well. Now, that being said, I mean, if you're an individual musician, if you really want it to be forgiven, it's the purpose of keeping your staff on payroll. So that might be the differentiator between whether or not it will be forgiven is payroll expenses. What type of payroll expenses can you show?
Does that include your own payroll expenses then, let's say as a sole proprietor?
So, that's been a really good question popping up here and there. And to give you a clear answer for that, I would refer to our frequently asked questions document that we have on our SBA's website. On there, it talks about if you're an LLC, a sole proprietor, how does this impact me? And so, to make sure if you meet the definition, because there's obviously caveats too, whether or not you're going to be forgiven for yourself.
Got it. So I think please apply, just apply and provide your information and start working through the process to see what's eligible, correct?
Right. And so, I mean, at the end, you can apply for triple P, and let's say you don't agree with the requirements or something. I mean, that's something you have the discretion to say, you know what, triple P is not for me, or you know what, I think this will benefit my business. So.
Sorry, I muted myself. Eric, I was hoping you've been answering lots of questions you know, kind of privately as we've been going as well. I mean, we will sum up all of these questions and be sure that we provide the answers for you guys. But Eric, do you see any other questions that are consistently being asked right now? Is he still on the phone?
Yeah, you should be here. Eric, you might be on mute, sir. There you are.
I'm here, and everybody, thanks for asking the questions. I'm trying to answer most of them privately. If I do not get to you, please do reach out to me. The big ones that are being asked constantly, I'm kind of providing information to the everybody group. And so feel free to keep asking your questions and I'll keep trying to answer them.
So one of the questions we have heard is asking, will this be extended? I mean, I know we're at the mercy of, you know, it's really the deadline right now is the end of August, and there are lenders that you can refer right now that are available to start taking new applications.
And is that for a triple P or is that for EIDL?
Either one, just so that we understand, because people are kind of confused, you know, when it comes to SBA, like what's PPP, what's this, you know, they're two separate programs. So just if you could just kind of give a sense of deadlines coming up for both funds.
So the purpose of EIDL and triple P, Erica, and just to clarify, you know, it's been for those that have been in business that have been directly impacted by COVID-19. So I know I see a question here about, hey, I'm just starting off. Well, am I eligible for this? And I don't want to automatically say no, because I've heard instances where folks did apply for EIDL and got approved. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis. And so as long as you can show, like, let's just say, for example, that you started off in February doing your own small business, or January rather, but you didn't file your DBA until like March, but you were able to show historical data that you were in business already, you know, that's a prime example of how someone was approved for an EIDL. I believe we're on mute, man.
Erica, you're muted again, Erica. Erica, it looks like you're still muted.
Apologies. No, Stephanie, I thought you were still muted. I was saying you're still muted as I'm muted. Okay, so I know that we're kind of running over, and I just wanted to, you know, reiterate, please reach out directly to Eric and to the Economic Development Department with any more questions. How many more minutes do we have, Stephanie, so that I could just read some of these specific questions?
There's nothing after this, so it's kind of open-ended.
And we can work with folks, Erica, Stephanie.
Yeah,
they
I'm
reach
looking
out
at
to
a lot
us
of
as well.
very specific questions
Yeah.
around LLCs and sole proprietorships that are difficult to answer in a generalized view. So I'm very, you know, thankful that you guys have listed your questions in this chat. And I know Eric's been trying to get to a lot of you guys, you know, as we've been going. So please put your questions in the chat. Please go to also atxrecovers.com. It is the City of Austin website that lists all current programs right now for relief programs, recovery programs, just resources. So for all businesses, small businesses, nonprofits, and individuals of how to seek support right now. I know we've been hearing lots from the potential for additional money coming down from the feds, coming down to SBA. You know, we don't know anything until it's official. And so what do you, Eric and David, anticipate if there is anything that comes out of from the federal side in terms of direction and funds? When do you anticipate a timeline perhaps for any new funding or new programs that could come down the pipe?
I think, I mean, and this is, of course, we get our directions from headquarters. And I know as we speak right now, Secretary of Treasury and SBA administrator are in constant contact of what's the course of action, should the funds still be available after August 8th? What do we do? And I know members of the House Oversight Committee have proposed different things, such as folks that applied for Triple P and successfully executed it for payroll purposes, are they going to be eligible for a second round of Triple P to do the same thing again? I've heard of potential grants again, but until we have confirmation, until it's signed into law, that's where we as SBA representatives, Eric and I, remain transparent with you all. So as soon as we have any updates, to share it with you, and then you can blast it to your community as quickly as possible, because of course our goal is to, especially if there's grants or anything like that, share it with you as quickly as possible, because we wanted to inject it in the Austin market. We want to help out the musicians in the music industry.
And could you go into a little bit about how much money is left right now, either to apply for or just to be sure if you have received funds already, just to take a look at these revisions to be sure that you're using that money efficiently. But there is, yeah, go.
Right. So there's for sure the first round of Triple P was exhausted in 13 days. I believe it was $350 billion. But with all the revisions that were made for the second round of Triple P, we're going some time into it now. And, again, 2 weeks ago, it was at $130 billion. And so I believe it's a little under 100 billion now. If I had to estimate anywhere between 80 to 100 billion that still potentially remains. And again, that could change, come next week, we could be at less than $80 billion. It just depends on the number of applications that are coming through.
Right. So I guess what we're trying to do, and the reason why we put this webinar together and to work with the SBA, is to let you guys know there is money left. You are eligible. I know it's confusing of trying to figure out, do I qualify? There's so much paperwork. I don't understand it. But I think as you start going through the applications, you'll start seeing that, oh, I have an answer for that and for that. So please participate.
And, something to further elaborate, Erica, and to the folks on this call, would definitely recommend going to SBA.gov's website, coronavirus. So it's actually SBA.gov/coronavirus. There's a list on there of frequently asked questions. And a lot of these questions that we've received, truthfully, will probably be answered on that list.
Right. I know things change very quickly, direction changes, policy changes, and you don't get the same kind of press release for every single change. And so it becomes difficult for a lot of regular folks to know what's eligible and what isn't. So I say, and this is what we say for our city programs as well, you just apply. And the best thing is, even if you're not eligible, we have your information. We start understanding what your needs are. So please apply. All right. Well, do you have any parting comments, Eric or David?
More to come. I know we're going to try to get some webinars established too, and which we'll share with the city. So once we set up some future webinars, something that we will control in office, we'll be sure to share with you all. Any updates I have, Erica, for sure. I got you on my email list now. So we want to definitely blast any updates when it comes to EIDL or Triple P. We want to make sure that you have this ready to go to share with your constituents.
All right, great. And so you guys have the contact information. Stephanie, if you could, what is our main contact for the music division? Is it, I always get this wrong. And
music@austintexas.gov.
Say it again.
It's music@austintexas.gov.
Thank you. So please either email Eric or David, email ourselves with any questions that you might still have today. We may not have the answers, but we will go and forward it and coordinate with the folks who do have the answers. So just, I know this is very difficult times. We're all in this together. I know you've heard that, but it's true. And there is support here, and it's difficult and daunting to apply for this type of, these type of applications are just unusual. They're long, but they're effective. Please, we want to help you, and SBA wants to help you. So please take advantage of what we have. And we will have this recorded and we will put it on our website. I'm not exactly sure where, Please go also to the atxmusic.org website. That is the City of Austin's Music and Entertainment Division website. You can sign up for our newsletter there too at the bottom of the page. And then again, just contact us through our email as well with any questions that you might have. I just want to again thank you to both David Elizondo and to Eric Spencer with the SBA of hosting this amazingly informative webinar today. Thank you for all of your questions and for your time. If your question hasn't been answered yet, we will get to it and be sure that these answers are, if they're not already on the SBA side or on the city site, we'll make sure that you guys have access to these answers. And so thank you for your afternoon, and you know, to be continued. See you the next time. Have a good
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.